Kia ora koutou. I've stood in this lecture theatre, like Bob, a number of times, but I'm reflecting here on the number of times I've been here with audiences similar to you who in the past have been really concerned about climate change. And many of those meetings in the early years were really debating, is the climate science right? What can we do? We feel so powerless in the face of the enormous changes ahead. I think the debate has really changed a lot. And to me, that debate has changed a lot really in the last 18 months, since 2015, but more specifically in the media. I've seen a big change in the last 18 months in moving beyond, is climate change science correct, to it's happening. It's happening now. We can see the impacts of climate change on our communities. There is no argument that the climate science is essentially believed by the media and increasingly believed by key sectors such as the farming community and businesses. And I was very heartened just to see, in fact, Wise Response has made a media release on this, led by Alan, that a number of New Zealand businesses who collectively contribute, I think it is 60% of business greenhouse gas emissions, have come together to say that they want to take action on climate change. And that is from A, which is Air New Zealand, to Z, which is Z Energy, both of whom have a considerable impact. So I suppose I'm reflecting a little bit here on a story of hope, but also particularly a story about the power of human voices, human concern and human action at many, many levels. My job here in this 10 minutes is to reflect a little bit on what previous speakers have said and hopefully set the scene for a bit of a discussion and debate for the last half hour. And I just am absolutely blown away by the richness of what people have given us already today, from James's reflections on climate science and the clearest 10-minute description I've ever had in such a short period of time. Thank you, James. That was amazing. And I suppose what he's really stressing, and many of us have also reflected on, is the risk, and Bob's picked up on this too, the risk of not taking action, both to the globe, to island nations who are right on the front line of this, to ourselves as a human species, and particularly, as Susan points out, to all species on Earth. And these risks are enormous. But these risks are increasingly being recognised, and again, on the heartening side, it's clear that insurance industry is becoming, for example, increasingly concerned about the implications of backing things like coal-fired power stations. And when you get major organisations like Swiss Re pulling out of backing these kinds of investments, that is when that high-level change starts to really kick in, and infrastructures can change as a result. I think Bob and Lisa really also reminded us very much about the fact that climate impacts are going to be unequally spread across individuals, across communities, across nations, and across generations. And for myself, having my daughter visit us, or our daughter visit us at the moment, 30 weeks pregnant with my first grandchild, I'm again really feeling that this little girl is going to probably be alive in 2100 and is going to be facing an immense change, potentially in climate and also in the way that we live and the way that we have to live in order to maintain a reduced greenhouse gas concentration in the environment, as well as adapt to climate change at the same time. And that's another theme I think that's been coming out across all of the speakers, and that is that we're facing a dual challenge of both adapting to the impacts of climate change at the same time as adapting to a different way of living, a different way of carrying out our business, a different way of thinking and acting at a policy level in relation to reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. So that dual challenge, if not faced well, is going to mean huge costs economically and huge costs on all of us as communities. But if faced well, if faced ethically, carefully and with foresight, as Alex has pointed out, that kind of future could be a future in which our human well-being is enormously improved, that we are living in ways that are good for our health, and also good for community, good for intersections between and interactions between us, and a development of a new ethic of living in a world where we're caring for the commons and equally caring for ourselves. So it's I suppose, the message there of hope is thinking about a new way of engaging with each other and a new way of engaging with the earth. The other thing that I'd like to just reflect on briefly is just, although as individuals we often feel like we can't make much of a difference, that difference can be made in many ways and at many levels. And as our speakers have already pointed out, in terms of our own lives, we can simply start to move to more plant-based foods in our diet. We can start to move towards more active transport. We can decide not to fly to our next meeting. We might do it by Zoom or Skype or something like that. Those changes also are starting to percolate definitely into businesses, and there's quite a strong business movement and business concern about the risks of climate change and how they themselves can bring about change in the way they do business, and in that way cater for new and emerging markets within New Zealand and internationally for low carbon type products. There's opportunities at council level to take action, and your voices encouraging councils to do the right thing, to invest in adaptation and to invest in mitigation activities is absolutely essential. So the fact that you can make submissions to the council, you can go along to council meetings, have your voice heard, is having impact. And I've been speaking to the Society of Local Government Managers recently. I've got another talk coming up to Local Government New Zealand. All of these organisations, one is staff of councils, one is the political arm, huge concern about climate change and a sense that they are on the forefront of the impacts of climate change, but also that they have a lot of responsibilities for mitigation. And at a national level, voices do have a difference. Even before the elections, the national government was already moving incrementally in the direction of actually believing that climate was a threat. They should have done it long before, but they were, and there was definitely a change in language within the policy agencies about climate change impacts and the need to start to take action. With the new government, I think it's riding on a wave of both voices from communities, concerns of councils, and the articulation by businesses that they also see it as a problem. That kind of collective voice buoys a government up to take action, and they're not going to do it without those voices. So the more that we can put our voices together on this, the better. And I was very excited to see a couple of days ago that Ireland, as the Republic of Ireland, has determined that within 5 years it will pull out all of its investments in coal, oil, gas, and, of course, being Ireland, peat. And to become the first nation to be completely divested of greenhouse gas emitting investments. So just, I suppose, harping back to Lisa, as she says, it is entirely within our power to make these decisions and to have these impacts, both within our own lives, but also to influence right up to a national and ultimately to a global level. So I would encourage you all to continue to be concerned. When I was thinking about today, I thought we might get 20 people. I'm absolutely blown away by how many people are in this room, and a mix of from the very small, who's just gone out of the room, to those of us with greyer hair. And it's really great to have all of you here, all of you concerned, and knowing that all of you feel that it's important to have a voice in this issue. Thank you.